Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case. Today I'm going to be doing another locked-in focused analysis video where I weigh in and give my own thoughts and opinion on the specific matter of the side-by-side and the incident which occurred with it to do it tied up in the Noah Presgrove case at the time of the party before the death of Noah. But working out, is there a true link between the accident, incident, and Noah's death? What happened in between it all? How does it link to the shower situation, if it does link at all? Any forms of foul play within it going on? Any cleanup jobs done? All kinds of features like that can come from a particular event, how it can link onto something else after in a certain order. I want to give all my thoughts regarding that today and do the best I can. No notes, once again, no notes whatsoever, no bullet points. Everything that's been said comes from in here, what I've seen with time about the case and learn, and just give my general thoughts and even common sense as well, which we can be used to an extent. So welcome to anyone that is watching during this live premiere. If you are here, share your thoughts and opinions in the live chat box, which is available on the right hand side of the screen. And if you do want to leave any additional comments, elaborate on points, got any questions, leave them down below under the video in the comment section, and I'll try and respond back to some of them. You'll also find a pinned comment by me. If you do want to support this channel, there are different links to follow in the pinned comments. Shout out to those that have supported the channel in recent time. And for those that are interested in my previous coverage of this case, and if you haven't received notifications or you might have missed out on my earlier video last night, day before, feel free to check out the top right corner of the screen right now where the eye symbol is. You hover on it, you click, you'll find a drop down box with the playlist and all the videos to catch up on. But let's just focus in on this latest video for now, and then we can go from there. Take in mind that there's a couple of other ideas of videos that can come after this, but I just thought on the spot, might as well talk about the side-by-side because it's like a side subject which comes up a lot. Quite often as reference points to it, but have I done a dedicated video yet all about it? No. If we to do like a checklist, I've done a dedicated video to Noah Presgrove cause of death and the location, giving my opinion on that and weighing in on it. Then I've done a focused video of the clothing situation, what's present, what's not, and what's most important in terms of a hierarchical structure. Be sure to catch up on that if you haven't seen it already. Have I done any other focused videos? Yes, a focused video on the CCTV footage situation, that scenario. I might have touched on it once or twice, but I did do a map analysis about it. At one point, I did do a focused map analysis timeline of a certain timeline of things what we collected with time. Does an updated one need to be done? Yeah, but probably not yet. So with time, I'm going to use that word quite a lot probably today. It's a bit annoying, but as repetitive it is, it's important. With time, it's all relevant. And how relevant, though, is this side-by-side within the case? Because the first question I would like to ask, because I don't really have the true answer, definitive answer behind it. Okay, it's been talked about a lot, but how true is it? First of all, my question would be, with the side-by-side incident, the rollover, which occurred either Sunday night or Monday morning 3 a.m. onwards, which would have been September 4th, 2023. Sunday or Monday, whatever, okay, it's contested. Not great, is it? But did the actual event actually happen? Is there actual proof and evidence that it did happen? Is there evidence and proof, footage, video footage, hard evidence of at least an individual driving it about in a certain area on the property on site, I'm guessing, and it tipping over or rolling over? Did it actually happen, the event? Because on the basis that the event wasn't relevant directly to the death of Noah, there would be no reason to lie about it if people are claiming that it did happen. It's just that people can't get the story straight as to exactly when it occurred as for the time or day. So Do we actually have evidence of it occurring? Yes, partygoers could say, yes, it did happen. Really, you'd have to hear it directly from the horse's mouth, which is Noah Presgrove himself. Did you drive it, yes or no? Is he here? No. Can he answer? No. Let's be honest. The only other set of people that could be important and relevant to answering and backing it up would be the passengers, the guys that went in with Noah, who weren't driving, but they were present. How come they haven't spoken out? And who were they? Texas boys? Others? When it comes to the different sets and groups of individuals, how would you divide it up? You've got 9 or 10 long-time friends who all know one another. Round it up just to 10. And there's 40 people in total. So out of the remainder, take the 10 away and the remaining ones you've got like 30. Out of the 30 remaining party goers, how are they grouped up as? You say there's 3 sets of Texas boys or Texas guys. Were there any Texas girls or not? Does anyone know? I mean, if you're going to say Texas boys, it's got to be all male only. If you're going to say Texas guys, loose wording could include females. But not heard it exactly explained. So at least 30 other individuals at the party, all from Texas, yes or no? Does anyone have an answer? You can say there's 3 sets of Texas boys from different areas, but how many out of the 30 remaining party goers? Okay? So even though that's not related to the side-by-side directly, it's just trying to understand the remainder of who is who and what groups do they come from. Then you could apply it to the question with the side-by-side of, out of all of them, how many actually saw the side-by-side incident take place and how true is it? Then the next question which would follow in with that would be, out of the people that were on board of the vehicle incident at the time, how many people exactly were in the vehicle and who were they? And then once you got that answer, then you could directly ask them, or the question message could be passed on for them to give their account of what happened. That hasn't happened, has it? We've not seen it. Is that because it's not important enough to do so? Or is it because it is very important but it can't be revealed publicly? Is there a small chance that there are certain elements which remain a bit of a mystery and contested, may fade out with time, and if or when the case comes to a head or close of a justice being received or some kind of answers coming out, will it be like the Dylan Rounds case where certain events or questions never were answered and it just fades away into unknown? No proof, no update to reinforce it, nor debunk it. So it's just like, leave it and that's it. Feels incomplete. The case might be complete, it might be solved, but what about these loose ends along the way? Well, they can't be that important if they're not being acknowledged by the end, maybe. But it's nice to tie up loose ends. Is that what's going to happen in the Noah Presgrove case, or will there be a lot of loose ends even by the end of the case, and then it just becomes irrelevant and then brushed aside? Will we see crossovers with the Dylan Rounds case? I want to know your thoughts regarding that, right? So, a lot of questions already, okay? There's a lack of certainty. How many people in the community of this case believe the side-by-side incident or accident did happen? It doesn't have to be relevant to the death of Noah or injury sustained. It doesn't even have to be relevant or linked to the shower directly. Just as a standalone event, do you think it actually happened? Like it did roll over? This is where I give my thoughts, my opinion. Do I think it happened? I wouldn't be surprised if it did. It's very unfortunate that there are no CCTV footage cameras that show it, because likely it would show it. But because the cameras weren't working at the time, Very unfortunate, but convenient for some in other regards. That's what I would say. A side-by-side rolling over at a party wouldn't surprise me because it could be on the basis of people messing about, doing stunts, drifting, doing a hard turn, causing it to roll over. But the question regarding was it done intentionally? I wonder. Did Noah Presgrove anticipate it? Did he want it to happen? And how did the passengers feel inside of that ATV side by side? Were they laughing? Were they frustrated? Were they angry? What was Noah like as well? Considering they said, oh, he needed to be escorted to the shower, he needed help washing, he was kind of out of it. But how did he feel when it rolled over? Did it sober him up? Did it shock him? Was he laughing? Was he angry? Was he emotionless? Why are we not talking about that? Why hasn't that been acknowledged? You can talk about Noah was here or there or he wandered off, but what was the mood, the atmosphere like? The only time, at least what I can remember, when an actual event was talked about in depth from certain points of views in terms of the emotional aspect of it, the presence, the atmosphere, was the falling out argument between Jack Newton and Noah Presgrove, when Jack was saying how they were not kissing, sorry, it's because of, you hug and kiss. No, they were hugging, they were crying. Did that really happen? Yes or no? Who knows? But an expression of an emotion was displayed. In terms of the Monday argument, though, Justin Roy was the one who said it got very aggressive between Noah and Jack. A bit of pushing and shoving as well. A bit more intense, sharper, just intense, right? So that's good to know. An event can happen, but you need to know the state of the person, but also the mental state of the individual. Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they angry? Are they shocked? Sometimes when a person may tip over, they might think, whoa, that was cool. Or they'll be laughing thinking, oh, I was a bit reckless. And other people around could be laughing as well or cheering it on because of the chaos. Sometimes other people can react in a negative way. Or the owner of the vehicle, who may not be in control of it at the time because they may be a passenger or they may be away from the vehicle itself and they see it happen or they hear about it afterwards, they could get a bit defensive and angry. How could you do that? You damaging my vehicle. Get off, get away. You should be controlling yourself better. It all differs. But when you get an idea of the emotional state of the individual, said event, and then you can work from that. Because in that moment, if the emotional state is negative, the mood is negative, the atmosphere is dark and tense, the next event that follows does the same emotional responses follow as well. And what could that entail? An example I could give, you got an argument between two people, or even before that argument, you got an activity of talking to another person at a party, and someone in the background, a friend or closer, gets jealous. Then you get confronted by them after because of who you were interacting with earlier. Then there's an argument. Then the situation becomes tense, awkward, maybe much worse depending. But then what happens after that? The activity of moving away, distancing oneself, getting away from the building. I'm cool enough. I'm taking a break, whatever. Walking away. The emotional response and reaction, does it follow? Yes, it can. As you walk away, to get away from them, the scene, you've distanced yourself, but you might be out of sight now, meaning you're more vulnerable. Out of sight of cameras or out of sight of witnesses. You put yourself in a vulnerable situation, but you're not thinking at the time. And if other humans on the receiving end, or the ones that caused the tenseness in the first place, end up following after, the emotions follow as well. It can drive them through emotions to follow after, cat and mouse. So a person, the victim, put themselves in a more vulnerable position now, and then the emotions of the other individual has caused them to follow in the same direction and bring it with them, bring that same negative energy. So when they do meet up again in a different area for a different activity, that atmosphere is still there, and then it's trying to understand what happens after that point. So you could argue and say the psychological aspect within the Noah Presgrove case could run very deep, and it's very important, but it's not being acknowledged enough because maybe people can't do it, but I can apply it to an extent and then work off from that. So for everyone watching, you look back at the party, you look back at each and every event, small scale, big scale, start, middle, end, whatever. What's the emotional aspect behind the individuals? How did they act? What were they like? That is the tricky part. You weren't there, were you? Well, likely you weren't. So you wouldn't know firsthand. The next best thing would be to reach out to those that were there. So could Caden Pressey give an example of like emotional reactions or the atmosphere at times? Well, that's what Caden did from his point of view in terms of Saturday by saying everything was normal Saturday, maybe at least to what he saw and heard. He made no reference to the argument between Jack and Noah on the Saturday, which caused Noah to leave short in the evening time. Even that's limited as well, isn't it? CCTV footage, limited, not even available. Party footage, probably the best thing firsthand from a variety of people present. That's where you could start, but you might reach the end quickly because the clip itself is a small compilation and it's not long in length and it doesn't cover that many different points of views. And there's other footage out there in the background which hasn't been revealed, or claims that there have been released out there, but it's no longer present. Whether it's still around or not in the background or not, who knows? As said, you might come across the theme of limitations. You work with what you have and what you've got. I think the psychological aspect is very important. The psychological aspect can be applied to the side-by-side incident in terms of the emotional response of Noah Presgrove. How did he react? How did he respond? And then how did the other party goers that were in the passenger seats react? Early on, I suggested that when Noah did what he did, given the responsibility of driving it himself, and if the passengers put their trust in the driver Noah, and Noah ended up tipping it over, putting the partygoers' lives in danger, they could be pretty angry and annoyed by it and get their own back on Noah afterwards or in the moment. Is that what happened? Who knows? But it was just a possibility, and that itself can tie in with an emotional response. You've been caught up in an incident or an accident. It wasn't your fault, but you can point the blame to someone who is at fault or to an extent and take it out on them in the moment or later, verbally or physically. As an example, besides the emotional part and the psychological part of how an event like that could then trigger the death of Noah. Does it warrant the death of Noah? Probably not. But in the mindset of people at the time, they may have felt that it did warrant the death of Noah. Am I saying that's the cause of death though? No. But it's like a negotiation between the side-by-side and the death of Noah, considering there's been people on and off over time that have said that the side-by-side actually caused the death of Noah, and it was kind of like seen as a cover-up to make it seem like just a simple incident being washed of evidence and then disposed of afterwards and moved about. In my mindset, if somehow there was any link whatsoever, me personally, based off the injuries, based off the hit and run being ruled out, and more so a beating type mob-like mentality from what experts have suggested, some of which at least, if there's any link whatsoever, I personally don't think the side-by-side incident killed Noah. I don't think it actually injured him much at all. Okay? But the only negotiation that I would suggest at this moment, from what I'm aware of, are the passengers of that vehicle may have been annoyed, frustrated, and took their anger out on Noah maybe later on as a possibility. But then, based off that condition, for it to be met, I would say it would have to link back to my original question of who were the passengers in that vehicle. If the possibility was it was the Texas boys or some of them, and that they are strangers to Noah Presgrove, based off those conditions, it would be more likely that they would take it out on Noah compared to long-time friends who would take it out on Noah in that instance. I know some people could say it doesn't really matter who it is, whether you know them or not, they can still take it out on you. And sometimes when it comes to true crime cases, it tends to be those that know you better that are the ones responsible for killing you in the first place or hurting you. Maybe. But the reason why I'm going along the stranger factor of people where you're unfamiliar with someone, it's like when you're telling a joke. Okay, we're scaling it back a bit, but if you used to tell a joke with those that know you well, you could get a bit more of a positive reception. They may find it funny. They may actually understand your sense of humor, so they will find it funny. And even if they didn't, they probably won't react too negatively. But you try telling a joke towards a stranger, a big audience of people, there's a higher risk and chance of it backfiring and it being quite awkward, awkward silence. If you were doing a more edgy joke which could trigger people and you're doing it around those who you have no clue who they are, you don't know the tolerance levels, you don't know what they're like, how they can respond. Yeah, because there's uncertainty, you tell that bad joke or that, if you want to call it an offensive joke, they could get triggered, they could be soft, they could retaliate back in the moment physically or verbally, and it might not end too well for yourself. But if you know who you're around and you can be comfortable with them and trust them, but you can tell them stuff and it won't trigger a negative reaction, right? So on the basis of the side-by-side incident, if Noah was with people who he's regular with, there might be a better tolerance level. It's like, oh, Noah, how could you do that? You know, you tipped over. I've got all dirty now. You're such an idiot. Something like that. If it's strangers who don't know what Noah can be like, and they may just put in a level of trust in hoping that Noah knows what he's doing when behind the wheel, and then find out that wasn't the case, they might feel betrayed. That they might feel like there's been a bit of an assassination attempt, not literally, and they could get triggered by it. They could get defensive. You know, some people who get hurt or injured may cry or may go silent, and others may not make a big deal about it. And then other times, people who might get hurt, it actually angers them. It almost gives them a form of energy back. They get hurt, they get punched, they get slapped. They don't cower away, they don't stand still, they move forwards. Sometimes. Once again, different psychological breakdowns of the human emotions, how people react and respond to said events in a certain environment with certain factors which can differ and change. So, a lot of questions, not enough answers, but I probably broke the record for the most questions asked in a singular video, or at least at the start of a video to begin with. So just to do a brief summary as to where we're at right now, in case people have joined late to this live premiere, as advised, be sure to rewind back so you don't miss anything, is that on the basis that the side-by-side incident did occur, regardless of the day, but on the basis that it did actually happen, I think it didn't cause the death of Noah, nor that many injuries at all. But there's a small chance that the passengers on board, if the conditions are met that they are strangers to Noah, they may respond or retaliate differently to how Noah's friends would, in a more negative way. Okay? And then on top of that, any other events that followed after the side-by-side, the emotions, the dark negative energy could have followed on. Could that apply to the situation with Noah and Jack from Saturday till Monday? Basing it off that, you'd have to ask the question, that argument that occurred on the Saturday, even though Jack said it was patched up quick, he kind of minimises it. Oh, it wasn't that bad at the end of the day. But, you know, can you take Jack's word for that? It's a shame no one else could comment about it. And once again, you can't ask Noah his thoughts on the receiving end because he's not around to do so. But if on the basis that that argument at the time on the Saturday was one of the factors to why Noah decided to leave, it must have been bad enough. The fact that it happened again on the Monday clearly shows things weren't truly patched up. So whatever the argument was on the Saturday, to do with girl trouble or something, that theme carried over possibly to Monday. Girl trouble again. Girl trouble on the sub-theme of jealousy, insecurities, defensiveness, negative emotions which could trigger negative physical or verbal actions. Okay? We're getting very deep, but you get the idea. It doesn't just have to be the side by side. It could be any event at the party, positive or negative. What happened in the moment? What were the emotions like? And what were the chances that it followed into the next activity or into the next location or room where people walked to? So, apply that for the future. Use it retrospectively if you want to. Just make sure to take into consideration. So, moving into the side-by-side specifically, I've given an overview, right? Can we look into it any deeper? Is it worth doing so? So let's just set the picture. Did it happen Sunday night? Did it happen Monday morning? Well, on the basis it being Monday morning, the time supposedly 3 in the morning onwards. The fact that Caden Pressey couldn't comment about it because he didn't see or hear it possibly could tie in line with it occurring at the time of when he was asleep. But the fact that Caden Pressey didn't comment on the argument about Saturday to do with Noah and Jack, is that because Caden was asleep as well in that moment? Or was he just away from the argument? Just a question, okay? But as a heads up, in case you didn't know, Caden Pressey said he went to sleep Monday morning, 2 in the morning. Woken up at 2:43, then went back to sleep. Then awoken 5:15. So from roughly 3 in the morning to 5:15 asleep for those hours. In the time frame of 3 in the morning to 3:30, and if you didn't believe in 3:30, say 3:41, because that's when Noah was officially labelled as missing, not by a police report or a call, but by another individual besides Jack, which was Jasmine Milan, with an official or public Snapchat post about it. Okay? 3 to 3:41. Certain time frame, time window. I would prefer to say 3 to 3:30. Just in my opinion, it's easier to work with. You got a 30-minute time window. A 30-minute time window to go outside, to drive about, to roll over, to then have a wash, to then want to sleep in one of the girls' rooms, to then have a supposed argument, and then to go away and cool off. Can that all happen in 30 minutes? Yeah. Is it likely to happen in 30 minutes though? It depends how long it goes on for each activity. And unfortunately, we don't know. It's okay saying this happened and that time was given, even though it's limited with times. No timestamp was actually given as for the side-by-side incident. No timestamp was given how long it took for Noah to have a wash. The longer it is, the more intensive and extensive that clean is. The length of a wash could determine how much is scrubbed off, whether that be evidence if you're on that basis, or you're just talking about the pen markings, right? The longer something is, the less you've got time to do other stuff. And if you've got a 30-minute period window to do multiple things, is it really possible? That's what I would like to know. What caused Noah to want to get in that side by side? That would be the other question. We're going to work a little bit backwards, okay? Behind the significance of the side by side, and before what followed after that being the shower, then the sleeping debacle, and all of that. What originally caused Noah to want to get in that side by side, and what caused the guys or group of people to follow after him? Sheep-like mentality. Oh, we'll all get on board of this because it sounds cool, it sounds fun. Why did the group of guys follow Noah? And once again, resorts back to that original question of who were the passengers? If the passengers were strangers, would they be more or less reluctant to follow Noah's lead by getting onto the vehicle? Yes or no? You think you could be a bit more reluctant. It depends how well you gel with them, because that's the other question. How well did Noah gel with the strangers? Did he hang around them much or not? Don't know. That's another question. And it's another emotional, psychological scenario, okay? Based off how you connect, whether that be physically or connect in terms of what you have in common, your personality and your behavior. But anyway, why did Noah want to get on the side by side? Was it before or after certain events? Now, to put it into perspective, and this is just my thoughts, my opinion, okay? If we knew the time as to when Noah reached out to the different people at the party when he wanted a lift back home, then you could apply that scenario with the side by side. So let me just make it a little bit clearer. In a scenario based off the conditions that before the side by side, so before 3 in the morning, this is where it starts connecting together based off certain times. This is all under control. Yeah, there we go, it's clicking. So if it's true that the side by side did happen, and if it's true that it happened Monday morning, and if it's true that it happened 3 in the morning onwards, well then that would connect with Caden Pressey being unable to hear it because he was asleep by that time. Caden Pressey mentioned on Facebook that Noah Presgrove approached him about wanting to be driven back home. Caden said he couldn't because he's been drinking, so he turned down Noah. Noah supposedly reached out to other people too. At what time? Unknown, but it could have followed shortly after one another. For Caden Pressey to respond back to Noah, whilst Noah was still alive, would have had to have been before 3 in the morning, because before, well, it would have to have been before 3 in the morning, but also before 2 in the morning, because it was at 2 in the morning when Caden initially went to sleep. So it would have been before 2 a.m. when Noah would have approached Caden, right? The night before, though, Sunday at 22:30, also known as 10:30 p.m., that's the time when Caden said he sobered up because his cousin came on down, I guess unexpectedly, and Caden had to be sober to look over his shoulder to protect her. Did Caden drink at any other point later into the night of Sunday going into Monday? Because if he didn't, when Caden said to Noah, I can't drive you back, Noah, to your place alone because I've been drinking, how well does that link? Do people understand where I'm coming from there? If you have sobered up, are you fit to drive? How long does it really take? Okay, you've drunk a certain amount, you could be very drunk, but once you've sobered up, how much longer after the point of sobering up are you then given the green light to then drive? How long does it take? I'm not an alcoholic, but if there are any present, share your thoughts, or are there any experts when it comes to just alcohol, non-alcoholics, but, well, alcoholic is someone that excessively drinks, but anyone that's got drunk before, here and there. How long did it take until you could drive? And we're not talking about how a person may feel okay when they're actually not. I mean, how does it work with Caden Pressey? He said he sobered up real quick. Is he claiming to be sober? Did he feel sober at the time, but truly he wasn't? Yes or no? A little bit uncertain. But what I'm getting at is, in between 10:30 p.m. on Sunday going into Monday morning before 2 a.m., in between that period, Noah would have approached Caden about wanting a lift back, and Caden said, I can't, I've been drinking. But Caden also said he sobered up. So how does that exactly work there? Sobered up, but still alcohol in the system, so you could get in trouble by police? Maybe. Any other people? Carter Combs, supposedly, it was said that Noah approached her, but rejected as well. But for what reason? Well, it was implied that at the time, at least, it was to do with the sleeping arrangement. But that would have meant after the side-by-side, 3 in the morning onwards, so it would have been really spread out. And then it kind of goes against what I'm trying to get at. So let's just base it off a scenario setting. Okay, we've seen the situation with Caden, the timing of it. And if other opportunities came about around the same time, before 3 in the morning at least, and Noah being turned down one after another, that emotional reaction from that point. How does Noah respond emotionally, psychologically, when it comes to rejection in many different ways? Is he used to getting his way or not? And when he doesn't, is he shocked, surprised by it? Does he respond back negatively, positively, or neutral, not really bothered about it? Because if you want to get back home, do you want to get home? Do you need to get home? What was that situation for Noah, right? And you might be wondering, how does this scenario link in with the side-by-side? Well, supposedly this is happening before the side-by-side. And the reason what I'm getting at there is, if on the basis that the psychological emotional response was from Noah that, oh, I've been rejected left, right and centre, everybody turning me down, no one wanting to drive me back home, fine, I'll do it myself. But how exactly? Walk it back? 42 miles north? Along a highway? Not possible whatsoever. Well, what other options are there? I'll get a vehicle of my own. Wait, I don't have mine. Oh well, I'll use someone else's. I'll use Jack's keys, supposedly, because I know him. He's my best friend. Surely he will understand if I take it now. And, providing he knows that I'm the one responsible, surely he will understand me and not report me to police or anything like that. Because, if it was a stranger to him at the party and Noah took someone else's keys and vehicle, that stranger could react differently and not be as understanding and take it up with police. Who knows? You can say more, you can do more, you can feel like you can get away with more around people you're more comfortable with. Now, that's not just to mean you just walk all over people, but, when there's a level of comfort and genuinity around groups of individuals, you can do more. And if it's something negative, you don't have to worry as much, because you might know how these people tend to respond back to certain situations, scenarios. So with Noah, at any point did Noah, because I asked it last night, did anyone fear Noah out of the physicality aspect because of Noah being a wrestler and this and that? Did Noah fear anyone at the party? Or did Noah think, you know what, I can do this, I can do that, I can get away with it, people will forgive me, Jack will of course, he's my best friend, so I'll take his keys, I'll get in the side-by-side, and I'll use that to get back home. I did do a poll not long ago, and a range of people did think that that was a possibility, right? Can a side-by-side be used on a highway, a normal road? I don't know. Would you get in trouble if you did use one? I don't think so, unless it differs from state to state. I'm thinking back to the Dylan Rounds case. People use side-by-sides in Montello, Nevada with no issues. But does it differ? I don't know. It's an off-road vehicle, or at least it's primarily used for like off-road adventures, but I guess you can use it on normal roads. I mean, like, there's exceptions in the UK. There are certain bikes, motorbikes. I don't know if it applies to quad bikes or if it's just the typical dirt bikes which certain gang people use. You're not allowed to use certain vehicles like that on normal roads. It's illegal. You can get in trouble with the police. I don't know how lenient it is with the US. Now, the difference is in the US, what we're talking about is we're not talking about like a two-wheel vehicle. We're talking about what, a four-wheel vehicle, ATV, a side-by-side. And I'm familiar with how they look because I've seen the Dylan Brown's case. But that was more so on the theme of driving about when searching for Dylan and the search and rescues and all of that. And it was all primarily off-road, dirt road related activities. When it comes to the Noah Presgrove case, it's a rural area, and there is a dirt road which leads down to the party house, and there is the garden area, the backyard, which Jack said that's where it did happen, the side-by-side rollover. But is there anywhere else that vehicle could have been used as an opportunity of driving about? No, because the fields were all fenced off, and they said there was no damage to them. The highway would be the only other place, but no debris over that way, and I've not really seen any mentions to the highway at all. So we're guessing it would make sense it's on site at the property. So you got an emotional reactional response from Noah Presgrove, supposedly, as like a theory, based off the conditions that if such and such tied in line with one another, Noah being turned down and being rejected, having zero offers or opportunities left from people who could help him, he thought, I'll take matters into my own hand, I'll drive back myself. The only other emotional response or reaction could have been, did he want to make a scene out of a form of protest? Oh, if you're not going to drive me back, I'm going to cause trouble at the party. Is that what Noah would normally do? Not from what I've heard of. But, people can react in different ways. Now, if it wasn't like some kind of emotional protest standoff with people and causing a scene, it could be, did he just want to do something cool and impress anyone at the party and mess about, prank around, be a bit silly? I thought it would be funny to just drive a bit recklessly. Different ways of looking at it, okay? But I still want to look back to the original scenario of potentially using that side-by-side to get back home. Now, where was that side-by-side parked in the first place? At the front of the property, near or inside of the barn, shed, or round the back? Okay, Jack said it happened round the back when it rolled over, but is that where it was parked up or not? Then you get an idea of how much distance was actually covered. Is there a GPS? Is there any kind of black box, or can you measure the fuel usage or the gas or the petrol, whatever you want to call it in the US, regardless? Distance. How much distance was covered in that side-by-side? No time has been given. No footage has been provided. How long did the event go on for? How loud was it? Was it a matter of rolling over in a few seconds, or did it take some time? Was Noah doing laps around the house, the property? Was he going one way, or was he going in circles? If you were going in one way, then maybe it was one way and one way out. If you're going round and round in circles, you're probably less likely to be escaping or leaving, because when you intend on leaving, or more so escaping, as soon as you get in, you're leaving. You're not going to take a detour. You're not going to drive about. You're going to find the first exit and go. But we don't know all about that, okay? We just say it rolled over. Does it just roll over like that? How could it roll over? Well, I'm leaning towards, well, probably driving along, does a hard turn, a hard left or a hard right, and that's what caused it to shunt, to roll. Okay, how many times did it roll over? Once, twice? Okay, just little details like that. Would a rollover cause that many significant injuries sustained to Noah's body as like overkill? Not that I'm aware of. Kathy Bingham or somebody else in recent time, was it Jodie Barth? It was someone recently on one of the Partners in True Crime interviews that said, whatever happened to Noah, something heavy landed on top of him to crush the insides. and that caused maybe a chain reaction. Okay, crushing. Crushing is different to tearing. Crushing is different to catching friction and ripping back. If something falls on top of you, and yet the scalp is ripped backwards, if something's going to land on top, it's not going to cause it to rip back. It's going to cause it to flatten. Unless things happened after that point. But, you know, based off what people have been saying in the background on Partners in True Crime, about being crushed or something, what, a rollover in a side-by-side, Noah falls out and then it lands on top of him? If that was the case, then people would have had to have helped or rescued him. There was no mention of that. There was no screaming mentioned or anything like that. Were any seat belts present in that side-by-side? And were people strapped in at the time? You got your seat belts on. Does the side-by-side have a roll cage? Yes or no? Because that does play a big role in kind of like safety and how you fit into these vehicles. If there's no roll cage, but seat belts were used, if you crash, you're not going to go right out the windscreen. You're going to remain in place. It will protect you. Though still damage can be caused by the jolt, whiplash, and the seatbelt locking and maybe causing bruising and maybe worse depending the force, the stopping speed. But in terms of tipping over, well, if you're not strapped in and the vehicle tips over, you could fall out. But if that's going to happen, you would have to fall out before the vehicle actually falls over on its side. If the vehicle falls over on its side first, you would hit the ground partially, but you couldn't really go anywhere because you still kind of inside of the vehicle up to a point where then you'd have to climb out on top, which would be the passenger side, or yeah, it would, no, well, it doesn't have to be the passenger side actually. When people drive, the steering wheel is on the left-hand side of a vehicle, isn't it? In the UK, it's on the right-hand side. So if Noah's driving along, takes a left turn, he will be closest to the ground. He would have to climb his way out if it's on its side of the passenger side. If he took a hard right, he wouldn't have to climb out of the passenger side. He'd be climbing out of the driver's side. And if he was strapped in, he wouldn't have gone anywhere at all, would he? But it was said that he got dirty. He got dusty. To what extent? Don't know. How did it look visually? Don't know. How did he emotionally respond to being dirty? Did he mind? Did he care? Was he not aware? Don't know, wasn't mentioned. But for it to trigger the response of have a shower and be escorted supposedly like a king of Rome, a leader, okay, VIP treatment, washed down, giving grapes afterwards, that's an exaggeration. What about the guys in the vehicle, the passengers, who were in the same situation? Were any of them strapped in, yes or no? Did they fall out like Skittles or not? And how dirty were they? And why did they not have a wash? Or at least why was it not mentioned? And why did Noah Presgrove have priority in being first in line to having a wash? Did anyone else follow after that? Did anyone else have a wash? Could you prove if the wash did happen? Footage, is it available? No. Can you look for water usage? How much water was used on that day? How many litres? I don't know if you could actually do that by now. It's probably not possible whatsoever. You have to look at water bills and stuff, and I don't think you'd be able to access that because that's all personal and private, and it might not do it on a day-to-day basis of water usage and rights. But, you know, I thought I'd just throw it out there. So the emotional response, the psychological thoughts of, did Noah decide to have a shower after the side-by-side, or did people advise him to do so? Was it like, oh, you're dirty, you need to wash off, you dirty dog? Would that have been outside or inside? I mean, think of an actual dog rolling around in mud. Are you going to take your dog into your house and get all mud everywhere to then wash it inside? I mean, some people might. Maybe some people who have lower standards than others. Other people that may have very high standards with their house, their cleanliness, how it looks visually, they might have expensive items inside of the house. They might think, you're not going in there if you're that dirty. You're going to stay outside. I'm going to get the hose pipe and wash you off that way. And then maybe I'll let you in. And then a more thorough wash with soap or shampoo, whatever, special products. Or some people might end up saying, right, you know what? I'm too lazy. I'm a lazy bastard. I'm not going to wash you. I'm going to send you to a dog grooming place or something, or whatever animal you've got. Is that what you do with a human as well? Well, I don't think you go to a grooming place unless you end up on the police list or the watch list. But yeah, but like with Noah Presgrove, how dirty was he? Was he too dirty to actually go inside? Were people like, ugh, no, you're too dirty. You're going to mess the house up. Or did people not really care? Maybe people didn't really care. Based off the age that there are, they're probably like, sure, you can come in. It doesn't matter. Just go for a wash and whatever. It could have been messy already. What about on the basis where people, this is what I just want to talk about now as like a counterpoint. Those that believe the side-by-side caused the death of Noah and all the extensive injuries somehow, and if not that, things followed just after, other means of attacking Noah, finishing him off. Nevertheless, brutal, overkill. At that moment, all that blood loss would have been present or in the process of it coming out, you would think. So what? Oh, yeah, escort him. Not because, you know, he's kind of out there and he's a bit drunk and needs help, but because he literally can't move. He's dead weight. So get other people to pick him up and take him for a wash. But wash what? Wash off evidence? Why would you need to wash off any evidence if it was Noah behind the wheel who tipped it over? There's no reason to. It would be Noah's own fault and own doing. Reckless drunk driving, simple as. You start washing him off of evidence, you're actually incriminating yourself, covering it up when you weren't responsible in the first place. But you're putting your foot in the door, you're putting yourself involved in the case, and now you're making yourself a problem. Just like how some people do parents who weren't out at the party, but put themselves into the mix of things. It just doesn't help. So, do you get where I'm coming from? If Noah, by himself, made the choice to get in that side-by-side, for whatever reason, in a desperate attempt to escape, to leave, because he had no other chances left, other guys followed because they wanted to leave as well and thought, oh well, we'll just go with Noah as a possibility. Trying to leave, but because of being drunk, impairing him, drunk driving, not a good mix. For some reason, reckless driving possibly, tips over, and then somehow it kills Noah. And then what? Other party goers are like, oh my God, Noah did this all to himself, but we're going to wash him down of any evidence so it doesn't link to us. No, you've made yourself a part of the case now. There is no reason to wash him down in the first place if Noah did it to himself. Not intentionally, but because of the reckless drunk driving, it happened. You were away from the situation, not your fault. But by moving the body and washing him down, you're incriminating yourself. It's like you're covering up the case. You're making it harder than what it is. You're making it worse for yourself. If you did nothing, you would have been better off, as long as you made a call to authorities just for that authenticity. Now, if other people in the background say, yeah, but we're not really getting at that. What we're trying to say is that the side-by-side accident incident did happen, but it's being covered up as if Noah was behind the wheel, but in actual fact, it was someone else behind the wheel, and Noah got caught up in it, whether it's intentional or accidental. And then that's why they decided to wash the body off, because someone else was behind the wheel. But why would you have to clean the body down if it was the vehicle that made contact with Noah's body and not yourself? Surely the only thing you would need to clean down or wash off would be yourself and your presence from that vehicle. Clean the wheel, clean the pedals, the seat, whatever. Purposely stage it and put Noah's body inside of the vehicle or something, right? Once again, there would be no reason to clean up the body when, if contact was made in the first place, it wasn't by the hands of yourself physically, but by something you were behind. Okay? Now, If you got into a fight with someone physically, with your fist or your legs, you've been kicking, you've been booting, touch-based DNA, of course you'll have to clean the body down. If you killed someone but you were wearing gloves, you wouldn't have to worry as much. Now you will have to still clean down or clean off, but not the body exactly, just yourself, your clothing, the items that you used, right? If you're in a vehicle or a car and a hit and run, you tend not to wash the body down. You probably drive off. You might scrap, get rid of the car, dispose of it, burn it, destroy it, change the license plate, get it fixed at a garage or an off-licensed one or some dodgy dealer, whatever the hell you call it over there, okay? And just make sure there's no other traces. The moment you get out of that vehicle and start fondling or touching the body, especially with bare hands, now you are putting DNA onto the body, which links back to you. Then you are digging yourself into a hole. So it's just a bit weird, that reasoning with the theories people have come out with time. Unless there's another possibility as to what people are getting at, but I can only say so much on the spot, right? Because of timing and everything. So, to get back to on the basis that it was Noah behind the wheel, and after it tipped over supposedly, and after getting dirty to what extent, was it Noah's personal decision to have a shower? Yes or no? If he was completely out of it, he probably wouldn't have been able to say yes or no. But if he was able to, and it was quoted and stated in the people.com latest article not long ago, that Noah helped flip it over, well, he must have had enough strength to be able to do that. Previously, there was claims that Caden helped flip it over, but Caden himself said he was asleep. And also, if he was to flip it over, he couldn't. Because of his leg, it requires core leg strength to, pick, lift, press, and roll. I don't think Caden could do that with his injury and recovering from the surgery. It wouldn't be possible. That bending, that mobility with the knee area, the leg, it just wouldn't be practical for him. But for Noah, well, if Noah's drunk and he's incapacitated and he's not quite conscious or he's fading in and out, how could he do it? But the article recently said he did, and then he walked off to have a shower. Very different to the original story, what we've heard. So there's a contrast there. Why would there need to be a contrast? It's as simple as, did he decide to have a shower, yes or no? Was it his decision, yes or no? Did he walk himself there to the shower within the building, or did people truly escort him? And then, did he have a wash by himself, or did people assist? Would video footage, if available, be able to clear some of that up? Yes. Has it been provided? No. Is that disappointed? Yes. There we go. The only thing I can back it up with is that Caden Pressey said earlier on. What does that mean? Earlier on Monday morning, or earlier on going back into the night before Sunday? At some point, Caden Pressey said he didn't see Noah have a shower, but he heard earlier on that Noah was thinking or wanting to have a shower. Okay. Would that have been at the time of the side-by-side or not? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe Noah got distracted in between. Then came the side-by-side situation, and after getting dirty, Noah was like, right, now I probably should have a shower. I said I was going to have one earlier, but now is the time. It's a sign to have one, because look how dirty and uncomfortable I am. Take in mind, the act of getting dirty in a side-by-side rollover, what's the likely chances of that though? Exactly. You'd have to make contact with the ground to really get dirty, wouldn't you? If that was the case, either Noah wasn't strapped in, and that's what caused the rollover, but he also fell out as well somehow and rolled about in the dirt and it gathered on him. That's how he got dirty. And if it wasn't that, because he was strapped in, and if he tipped over on a certain side, the right, if he's in the left-hand side of the vehicle because of the driving arrangements, he wouldn't have made contact with the ground. But either way, one thing that can happen is when you're driving about, drifting, taking a sharp turn, the friction, traction with the ground and the wheel, and if there's any spinning as well, it can create dust clouds. When you're doing a donut going round and round, that burnt rubber, that smoke produced, it clouds the air, the atmosphere, creates a blinding effect. It's hard to see anything, isn't it? It all comes down to how long, once again, with the question, which all links together, how long was Noah driving for in that side by side? The longer you spend driving about, going up and down and drifting around, it's going to create a lot of dust and dirt, isn't it? The more dusty, the more dirty, the more likely it's going to cling and stick to your body. Just like if you were having a fire, a bonfire, you're near to it, all that smoke, it can stick onto your body. You can inherit that scent, the smell of it, right? And even having a wash, it doesn't exactly go completely. But if you're too close to a fire and the smoke, it can make your nose area and nostrils black. You can see how it leaches onto you, how smoke as well, in presence of a room over time, can turn colours of walls yellow. All kinds of side effects with time. And it comes down to the theme, the factor of time. The longer time spent around it, the more likely it's going to impregnate on your skin, your surface, or in your pores. And it could remain for a certain set of time. Some of it can be imprinted permanently until it's washed off onto walls, different types of smoke as well. But we're talking about dirt, but you can get dirty cloudedness, dust in the air, which can stick onto you. Take in mind the temperature, the weather, humidity, sweating. If you're wet, it creates kind of like a surface which welcomes dirt to stick on you. And then when it dries, it could set and you've got like a layer of dirt on you and dust. You want to wash it off. You just want to freshen up in general. You want to cool off as well because of the sweating. Yeah, it makes sense to have a shower. And if Noah felt uncomfortable at the time, the response would be psychologically, I better have a wash. I need to clean up, freshen up and get rid of this dirt because I don't want it on me. But do we have proof to say that that's what Noah wanted? Did he make the decision? Did he give consent to have a shower? Or did other people take it into their own interest and say, yes, he needs a shower, we're going to take him there right now? The same people that decided to supposedly escort him and wash him down, whether Noah wanted it or not, are the same people to make the decision on behalf of Noah after death to think, you know what, these personal possessions of Noah, or we assume are personal possessions of Noah, like the golf clubs and bag, we're going to make the decision to move them on, to get rid of them. Did Noah ever have a say at the party as to what he can and can't do, what he can keep, where he can go? He must have had some control and freedom, of course, to wander off, supposedly. But you get what I'm saying? The shower situation, oh, it's not that deep. But wouldn't it be better if we actually had proof to just make it clearer and even more simple? Or more complex, but at least clearer? We just don't even have that. So that's what I'm interested in, because the shower situation was probably accelerated in happening because of the side-by-side. If Caden said when he was awake earlier on, so supposedly before the side-by-side incident, that Noah was considering having a shower, but it didn't happen immediately, there was a delay or he got distracted. When it came to the side-by-side and getting dirty, that's the turning point for having a shower, maybe wanting a shower, or other people believing that it's needed at the time and then taking him to have one. We saw in one of the articles what we recently looked at, even though it's an old one, 26th of May, it mentioned Jasmine Milan's name in helping Noah to the shower and maybe helping wash him as well. Why is that significant? Because Jasmine Milan and Noah did kiss in the past and it looked intimate, so there's a level of closeness there, whether people agree with it or not. We've seen it as for footage, right? But as well, the fact that at the time, I think that Jasmine Milan was some kind of care assistance. Not a full-on one, but like an assistant, so helping with what? Elderly people or vulnerable people, helping them wash or other activities. And to do those jobs and roles requires a certain personality and level of care. So is that why Jasmine Milan was appointed the one to help wash Noah, because of the closeness to begin with, but also the role, what she does in life, so it suits her? And someone who wasn't in that role, who could be forced to do it, could be like, ew, I'm not going to touch Noah. I'm not going to wash him down below or anywhere. Ugh, get away. Ugh. Depends, doesn't it? Another little factor to take in mind. That's if on the conditions that someone else washed him, because we don't actually know. Yeah, people in the background could say, yeah, but we've seen the footage. Good for you. But the majority haven't. But the point of releasing it first, then taking it away afterwards, sounds like playing mind games. Doesn't do anyone any favours, just adds more to the mystery and a little bit of confusion too, and time wastage. So yeah, side by side, then a wash. Caden didn't see any of it. Caden only heard about Noah wanting a wash earlier on, so that would imply earlier as in before the side by side. So that's what I think. But I do find it weird how it's all about Noah having a wash, having a shower, but nothing mentioned about the passengers. Surely they would have got dirty as well, right? Yeah. But then, to tie it back, regardless of how dirty you are, and even tying it in with even somehow being washed off as a form of foul play by others, cleaning him up of evidence. So revert back more so because it shows the stupidity of the situation, okay? If somehow the side-by-side was linked with the death of Noah, or even another activity was linked with the death of Noah at the hands of party goers, do you honestly think people would be thinking, right, let's go and drag Noah's body into the house? A lot of blood being lost, which may have not been present at the highway, but could have been present at the scene where it did happen. And where it did happen, if it was at the property, and if the body was taken into the house, surely that's where all the blood would be, right? And surely, if moved about and especially taken upstairs, through the different rooms to the bathroom shower area, all that blood, you're going to take someone who's bleeding pretty bad, you're going to take them, drag them or carry them into the house, taking in touch-based DNA, taking in evidence, taking in all that blood through the house and getting all messy and stains along the way. You're only going to make it harder for yourself, a bigger clean-up job afterwards, right? It just seems a bit silly, doesn't it? What would make more sense is like the dog situation. You're going to get dirty or bloody. Well, you're not going inside until you're clean. You get what I'm saying? If somehow foul play did take place and directly the foul play of washing off evidence, it would have made more sense to have been done outside, round the back or on the front. If there was a hose pipe, do they have a hose pipe? Never saw one. But you kind of think people would have a hose pipe or some kind of tap somewhere where they could use the water. I might be wrong. It might differ from country to country. But, yeah, are you going to take a body into the house and all over the place and get all blood all over the floors and walls and bloodied handprints all over the place? Or are you going to leave the body outside and wash it off with a hose pipe to wash away excess blood and stuff? It still might not be professional enough, but it's a lot more practical than going inside and messing it all up, right? So, is there any truth in any of that possibly happening? The only example I can give is Caden Pressey did say after 6:30 a.m. post-death of Noah and the news as well, when Caden was back at the house, which was around 6:30 at the time when Renee Millan supposedly arrived, and then they were clearing up certain stuff. More so, it was Caden who said he was picking up the beer cans and moving things, is that when he looked at the front porch, the ground, the concrete, it was wet. A puddle of water, or just a wet patch. I can't remember, but there was water. It was wet. Okay, water tends to be wet. Okay, and other liquid as well tends to be wet. Could be sticky, but we're not talking about that here. What liquid was it though for the ground to be wet, and when did it happen? For Caden to only recognise it at 6:30 in the morning onwards could imply that it happened not long ago. Because if it happened earlier on, there would have been more time for it to evaporate and dry up, right? But I was just using that example of a wet patch, as in what, a hose pipe was used. Could that have been what replaced the shower situation? That he was actually washed outside with a hose pipe as a prank or not? People can get hosed down. It can work. It might be cold water, might be uncomfortable, but it's a method. It's a way to do it, right? So does that apply here? Or is it what Caden saw, the wet patch, was just simply water spilled or alcohol? Wouldn't be a surprise, because at 1:42 in the morning, supposedly, of Monday, when Brylan and Noah were on the front porch patio and Noah was asking to be slapped, and Brylan did so, the camera panned about and we saw on the ground just behind Noah there was a pool of water or liquid, and it was running down, trickling. So obviously there was a bit of a gradient on that path for it to trickle down, and there was a can nearby. A drink spilled. Nothing odd, right? So that could debunk the wet patch on the concrete of the patio or the porch, okay? But that was the only example I could give you in terms of a wet patch, which could imply being washed down. So yeah, there's that. If proof video footage comes out of the actual shower, well then obviously that will really help the situation, but you can only question at this moment because there's not enough proof, right? The fact that a simple event of having a shower is a complete debacle of, you know, was he escorted, yes or no? Was he washed, yes or no? Did it really happen, yes or no? Switching and changing a bit. And then the debacle of the side-by-side. When did it happen? Oh, it was Sunday night. No, it was Monday, 3 in the morning onwards. There's a big difference, big time difference between that time and that time. Yeah, visually, it might look the same because it's, you know, nighttime or early hours of the morning. It can be dark. But if you got clocks laying about, obviously the time will differ drastically. Maybe people didn't look at the time back then or didn't consider it. But if there was footage, okay, of the side-by-side, surely there'd be a timestamp provided as to when it was recorded. If it's recorded raw, it'll be recorded in the moment. And in the moment would mean that's the time of when it happened. For the side-by-side, if there's footage, and for the shower, if there is footage. That's not that difficult, is it? But if people within the case can't come to a definitive consensus of timings of when things happened and the day, yet they also claim that they've got the footage of it, in which normally footage, original, would have the timestamp as well, well, they've contradicted themselves. Oh yeah, we're not too sure when it actually happened, but by the way, we've got video footage and proof that it did happen at the time of when it did, but we still don't know the time exactly. Oh no, right? Yeah, timings and stuff could be edited and adjusted, but why would you want to do that? That has its own dodgy questions and stuff, doesn't it? But you see, this side-by-side, you get the scalpel, you separate it from everything else, you look within it internally, the actual event, the possibilities around it, the emotions within in the moment, and then how that connects on, how it follows on. Side-by-side, then a shower. Was it really a shower or was it a wash outside? Was it a cover-up in cleaning off evidence or not? I personally don't think it was a form of cleaning up or of evidence in terms of the shower scenario, because you're taking in DNA and evidence into the house with the blood trails and stuff. It seems ridiculous. But also the act of, if you killed someone with the usage of an item but you did not physically make contact with the person, you wouldn't need to clean that body off your own evidence. There wouldn't be a need. You could dispose, you could drop off the body, but the washing should come after that if you did actually touch the person with your hands in the disposing, okay? But if you were wearing gloves in the appropriate gear, you wouldn't need to. But take in mind, If people were to dispose of Noah's body, are they likely to have gloves with them at the time, considering the temperatures and the weather, the heat and everything? You probably normally wouldn't wear gloves when it's hot, but you probably have to wear gloves regardless of temperature if you need to protect yourself, however that may be. Would they have had gloves on standby or not? Makes you think. Surely they would have had to have had gloves if they disposed and dumped the body, because the report, at least the autopsy, didn't give any touch-based DNA from anyone else. So that must have been somewhat successful in the eyes of the people doing the possible disposing, if that really did happen, right? And yes, I know that's away from the side-by-side, but I'm just talking about the order of things. And it links back to the theme of touch-based DNA in the accident or the incident of the side-by-side. I mean, another way of proving who was in the vehicle, or at least who was handling the vehicle at the time, if people couldn't get the stories completely straight, would be do an analysis, take it into the labs or get them to come down to look at the side-by-side and investigate into it. But did that happen? Well, some say it didn't, and others say it did. The ones that I've seen say it did happen, but they didn't look at the right vehicle. Okay. So it's like a three-way Mexican standoff once again, and different things happened. Oh, great. That's really helpful. No. But do I think the side-by-side is a turning point in the death of Noah? I would say it's not directly the turning point, but more the catalyst, the accelerator in speeding everything up, right? Being drunk is one thing. Being incapacitated would imply that Noah can't really do much after that point. Or being a bit tired and drunk, maybe not incapacitated. I'll have a shower, wash myself, dust myself off somehow, and then call it a night, even though it's Monday morning. And I'll just settle down now. I'll go to sleep, not in the mood or not in the right frame to be really doing anything. As a story's been presented after this time. And then, in the process of the shower being done, the process of trying to sleep and getting the correct room or wanting a room whilst others just did what they had. I mean, there was 30 to 40 people maximum at the party, but they came and left. So at the point of when Noah wanted to sleep in one of the girls' rooms, how many people were at the party at that point? Was there enough space? Because I did say, what about those other buildings nearby? Were they occupied or not? Could Noah have slept in one of those bedrooms of those buildings? Yes or no? Okay. And why would Noah want to sleep in one of the bedrooms, in one of the beds? Why does it seem like Noah Presgrove is getting that royal treatment or that entitlement of, even though I'm not the party host, I don't live here, but I deserve to sleep in the bed, and everyone else, well, they can make do with the floor. What's going on here? I mean, I can't think of the term to describe the situation, but that's how it's like coming across. And then Noah being helped and washed. See, this is the thing. Noah Presgrove is the type of person to get more special treatment in the moment. If the more popular you are, people are more likely to orbit around you and do things for you. For them to get acknowledged, because they want to get acknowledged or they want to get closer to you, okay? A bit unrelated, you get a professional gamer involved in tournaments, $100,000 tournaments, $1 million tournaments, if not beyond. They're a creator as well, or they're just professional. And, people could orbit around them, oh, wow, and be all nice, give them extra special treatment because they want something out of that individual. Yet then if you get an average individual that isn't a professional gamer, isn't involved in any high-stake tournaments, no, prize-winning money, no money generated from gaming, and they just play as an activity, a hobby, out of enjoyment and fun, and they said to someone, hey, I play video games, others could be like, ew, no, sad, pathetic. And that can be very hypocritical because those people read books or sit in the dark with bent over shit postures, crippled trying to do little drawings. And don't worry, I've got experience in all fields because I've done some extensive drawings in the past. I couldn't walk afterwards. I was completely crippled because of the positioning I was in, okay? But what I'm getting at is you can get a person that does the activity just as an activity. Then you can get a person who does the activity but gains a lot from it. Popularity being a main factor, and money too. People may want a piece of that, so they'll do extra special treatment and be extra nice to that individual so they can get what they want or just be closer to that celebrity. But the average person, oh, they're just brushed aside and forgotten about. So the situation with Noah Presgrove, supposed to be a very popular person back at school and at the party too, and what all the girls like or want him, they'd be more likely to do favours for him, maybe in hopes or wants of that Noah would give something back. That's just a possibility, right? So the idea of Noah being escorted and being washed down as well, that special treatment, whilst the other guys in that side-by-side got F all from the looks of it, is because Noah's popular. Noah gets what he wants. That's how it was worded by some people online. Or more so, Noah just receives more attention because people want to give it in the first place because they get something out of it in a positive way. That's how you could look at it, okay? But it doesn't go all the way, does it? Because with the sleeping arrangements and Noah wanting to sleep in one of the bedrooms, denied. But it all comes down to who he reaches out to. How many bedrooms are at that house? At least 2 bedrooms with 2 beds, one for Carter, one for Avery. And Noah wants to sleep in whose? Carter's or Avery's? Or tries both? I don't know. Because at one point in the past it was worded as Noah approached Carter. Then in other articles what we looked at, Noah approached Avery. Which one? Both? Or just one or the other? Does anyone know? It would make more sense with Avery when supposedly Avery's got history with Noah in the past. With Noah and Carter, no history. But more complications in the moment if Jack found out, because Jack is the boyfriend and Carter's the girlfriend, they're together. And Noah gets in the middle of it all. Yeah, that would be awkward. But that example would explain more behind certain arguments, wouldn't it? Different ways of looking at it. But on the basis of the side-by-side to the shower to the bedroom scenario, maybe more so with Avery. The ones that may have escorted him to the shower, the ones that may have washed him down, were ones who didn't have a place or a bedroom at the house because they didn't live there. But they were the ones more likely to help out Noah and see if he was okay. But someone like Avery or maybe Carter were a bit more stern in, you're not going to get special treatment, Noah. No, I'm going to treat you like a normal person. You want to sleep in this room? No, you're not going to sleep in the same bed. But they were lenient enough to say, or at least one of them was lenient enough to say, supposedly, you can at least sleep on the floor. Sleep on the floor? I mean, isn't there enough floors in the bloody house to be sleeping anywhere? Everyone's sleeping all on the floor, like what, the Jonestown incident? Is that the one? I don't know. Maybe. But there's enough buildings on the property on site, 3 buildings at least, and a trailer as well, supposedly. Did Noah not attempt to go in any of those? Okay, maybe the rejection part of not being able to get what he wants, is that ultimate reason to why he stormed off outside? Probably not. Sounds a bit exaggerated at how it's been told. But did Noah make any other attempts to sleep anywhere else? Or is it the general theme of rejection? If Noah earlier, depending on the timing, if Noah earlier was rejected giving a ride home, so then he protested or he tried making it back himself home and tipped over, incapacitated or not in the right frame, having to be brought back into the house, back into the place you were trying to leave from, like a horror film, then being washed and thinking, you know what, defeatist, I'll just sleep, but I want to sleep in one of the bedrooms at least. Then that being turned down, more rejection. So he can't be given the chance to get back home. He's denied of that, and he's denied of having a proper sleep. But then again, that could be a bit entitled because it's not your house, that's not your bedroom. So you can't expect, or you can't demand to sleep there. But just the theme of constantly being rejected and turned down back to back. Can't have it any way. Why am I here? What can I do? What can't I do? Oh, I've had enough of this. That's one way of looking at it, at least. Because too much rejection can send people over the edge in different ways, whether that be over time or back to back, close together. People can have different tolerance levels and breaking points. But did Noah really have a breakdown? Probably not. Because how he's been described, quite positive, and how he responds to situations, he just takes time out and cools off. And that's, I think, what certain family members said, or other people with time. Did Caden ever comment on about Noah cooling off here and there? I can't remember personally. I don't know if anyone else does. But, you know, what else happened after that point, we don't need to get into today, because the whole point of was the side-by-side situation. The only other thing you could probably talk about would be, and the lack of the investigation of it, would be what happened after the death, post-death. Well, supposedly that side-by-side was eventually sold months later. Was it April 29th? Months on, at least. Was there a form of urgency to get rid of it? Well, I guess in terms of putting it up there and selling it immediately, supposedly on the Facebook marketplace, that was the case. It was done quick. But it wasn't bought quick. And if people were desperate to get rid of it and no one was buying it in time, you'd probably take it off the list and think, right, we'll just bloody throw it onto someone local, or we'll just scrap it and get rid of it completely then. Does that debunk the situation then as being suspicious? You could imply. It's like sometimes with a hit and run, the vehicle could be disposed or dumped in the middle of nowhere, or beyond, it could be outright destroyed, sent to a scrap yard, put in a crusher, broken up, disposed of in that way. Depends how far people will want to go. Other people end up maybe not being caught in a hit and run, but other traffic offences, and then after that point they end up trying to sell that car on, and unknown customers buy it, and then the police catch up with them and say, are you aware that this car has been used or caught up in crimes and offences? Are you aware of that? And obviously the people wouldn't be. It still catches up. So, depending if a vehicle was caught up in a crime, the crime of Noah, more so, the act of selling it as soon as possible, passing on that responsibility to someone else, can apply. But the act of keeping it up, listed up until months later when it was eventually bought, shows there's not much urgency in wanting to speed it up. The lack of urgency. And if there's a lack of urgency, then there's a lack of worrying. There's no need to worry about the situation. If there's no need to worry about the situation, then it's because it doesn't link to the death. That's one way you can look at it. Now, the reason why it was sold to afford the cost of a boat. So there was an end goal. So it might not have anything to do with the death of Noah, but because of the unfortunate coincidental timing of it, and because Noah was caught up in using that vehicle earlier, even if it didn't cause the death, it just sounds like poor timing, doesn't it? Oh, this individual used that vehicle before and then later ended up dead. No correlation between the two, but because that was the person who was to last use it, at least in the moment, interesting. But then for that to be got rid of as soon as possible raises a few eyebrows. Now, even though supposedly police didn't check out that side by side, if the police did check it, investigate and follow it up, was there enough time and opportunity for them to do that with the time of the vehicle being listed on the marketplace? Well, yeah, because even a vehicle is listed on a marketplace, it's not just going to disappear into thin air. It's still going to be in the possession of the owner. And then eventually, once the deal's done, it will be passed on. So it's not just going to vanish into thin air, but it's the mentality, the attitude of, this is what Noah last drove, and I want to get rid of it. Not getting rid of it because of Noah, not getting rid of it because of the death, maybe because of other reasons, cost for other things in life, but still, the timing of it, it's poor timing. Just like the language and wording by people. If you keep messaging this individual, I'm going to come and find you, said Colton Newton. Poor timing, poor language. Stevie Howard earlier on. If we were responsible as parents, we would have done a better job at disposing of Noah's body. Poor timing, poor language. Patterns, themes, over and over again with different humans, different genders of all ages within the area or so. Not a good look, right? So I think that's the best analysis I can provide at this moment in time with the side-by-side. I would arguably say this is probably the deepest we've gone because of the psychological aspect behind it. Be sure to leave your thoughts down below. I kind of, not advise, but it would be appreciated if you share this video, because I do believe with a level of confidence that what I've said today, what I've questioned, some of which has never been mentioned before, even just a psychological aspect behind it, the ordering of it all. There's certain areas which have been mentioned which have never been mentioned before. That's what I feel. And we can see if that correlates to other people if the video is shared, and if YouTube decides to give it the reach it truly deserves. Now, as a heads up, I might actually change the thumbnail of last night's video. That's not to manipulate it, but it's so it doesn't overwrite or overshadow this video. This video is about the side-by-side. The video yesterday kind of incorporated the side-by-side, but it wasn't all about it, but it used a photo of one. So I need to change it about. But I'll still make it different just so people don't assume that what they're seeing is from last night, that this is an actual new video. So I'll work on that in the background, but I hope you found this video interesting. And if you did join late to this live premiere, I do advise you to rewind back to the beginning and watch it all because it's very deep and quite important. So we'll see what happens next. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Good night.